It all started with a whisper, almost imperceptible, a faint sound that most would simply dismiss as background noise. But this wasn't just any whisper. It was the quiet beginning of a seismic shift, a tremor that would soon crack the very foundation of a family. Imagine being told, subtly at first, then with increasing insistence that certain things were just for your own good, for the collective security. You wouldn't question it, would you? You'd trust. You'd believe in the shared vision, the collective dream. But what if that trust was being systematically eroded, one quiet transfer at a time? What if the safety net you thought was for everyone was actually being woven for just one? This is where our story truly begins, in the shadows of an unseen hand moving pieces on a chessboard, setting the stage for a revelation that would shatter illusions and redefine reality for an entire family. Then came the moment when the whispers coalesced into an undeniable roar. A recording surfacing online like a wildfire, tearing through the carefully constructed world of the Brown family. And there it was, a voice unmistakable, Robyn Brown, caught in a frenzied yet calculated discussion about a significant money transfer. It's just $820K. Cody doesn't need to know the exact amount. If it's listed under family expenses, no one will question it. Can you feel the chill of those words? The quiet confidence and deception? The casual dismissal of accountability? It wasn't just about the money. It was about the audacity, the brazenness of taking shared assets, over $820,000 in community property funds, and moving them into accounts under her exclusive control. Not a family trust, not in collaboration with Cody, just her name. This wasn't merely a financial misstep, it was a profound act of betrayal, a secret empire built on the very trust that held a family together. Think about the silent calculations, the quiet maneuvering, all while presenting an image of collective care. It's a stark contrast, isn't it, between the public face and the private machinations. The spark that ignited this blaze came from an anonymous whistleblower, someone close to the TLC production team. They had grown uneasy witnessing what they called manipulation and emotional blackmail behind the scenes. Imagine reaching a point where your conscience can no longer bear the weight of complicity, where the psychological toll of silence becomes too great. This isn't just about exposing a wrong, it's about reclaiming a sense of integrity. The tape first found its way to Janelle. She listened to it, not once, but twice, sitting in her small rental in Arizona with her son Gabe by her side. Can you picture that moment? The dawning realization, the thundercloud descending in her chest? She succeeded, Janelle muttered. She did it. Really? And then Gabe, seeing the bank transfer reports retrieved from their shared folder, delivered the crushing verdict. This is robbery, Mom. This is deception. The unraveling had begun, igniting Janelle's frigid rage and Meri's awakening. The weight of treachery was so heavy that Janelle's voice trembled when she called Meri that night, not out of terror, but from a righteous indignation. She stated plainly, she embezzled the CP funds, more than $800,000. It's all in Meri's name. On 2 forms, she even used Cody's electronic signature. Meri, in startled stillness, could only ask, wait, do you mean she made up his name? Janelle's growled response highlighted the depth of the deceit. She told him it was standard budgeting. While she was securing herself, she used the free security for the family. Christine, on a video conversation with them, didn't even flinch. She always had a plan, and I knew it. The others were merely pawns. But she's gone too far now. Meri's gaze grew strained, a new resolve hardening her features. She has underestimated the wrong women if she believes she can get away with this. In that moment, for the first time in years, these 3 ex-wives stood together, not united by shared misery, but by a powerful, collective readiness to work together. It was an identity shift, a recognition of their collective strength against a singular betrayal. Robyn, seemingly oblivious, returned to Flagstaff and walked onto the TLC set with her typical, over-rehearsed warmth, Cody trailing after her, complaining about the illumination. Neither was aware of the storm that awaited them. The producer tapped a tablet and, with a simple statement, unleashed the truth. "We just want to get a reaction to this audio." The room became silent. Can you feel the sudden drop in temperature? The tension in the air? Robyn's face became completely white as the well-known whispering voice poured out of the speaker. "Cody doesn't need to know." Cody narrowed his eyes, peering at her. He remained silent until the recording finished. Then, in a chilling tone, he spoke, "You claimed that you were only handling the finances?" Robyn stumbled, trying to justify. Yes, I am. I had to make sure we were all right." But Cody's next words cut through her facade. "My name was signed by you. You assured me that the paperwork was not a concern. It was for all of us, not you." He got up and bounded off the set. For once, even Cody's loyalty, a bond presumed unbreakable, had finally collapsed. This wasn't just a scene for television. It was the raw, unscripted implosion of trust, a betrayal witnessed by the very cameras that had documented their lives. Within a few hours, the media frenzy erupted. Headlines screamed the truth. Entertainment Weekly. Robyn Brown moved $820,000 in family funds. Secret audio revealed. TMZ, TLC show in crisis. Robyn Brown charged with community property theft. The Sun. Robyn faces repercussions as Meri and Janelle prepared to file a lawsuit. The Cole manipulator was suddenly the subject of a front-page scandal. And crucially, Robyn lacked a public defense. Her sister wives held nothing back. Christine shared a chronology of Robyn's financial control live on Instagram. Janelle made redacted records demonstrating the community property transfers public. And Meri, in an emotional message, articulated the deeper wound. It's not just about money, it has to do with trust that is irreparably damaged. In the court of public opinion, Robyn Brown, the architect behind the family's collapse, was promptly judged the winner. The contrast between her carefully curated image and the stark reality exposed for all to see was devastating, leaving no room for doubt or denial. Janelle and Meri wasted no time. They sued for an independent audit of all community property funding from 2020 to 2024. Their lawyers accused Robyn of financial coercion, fraud, and forgeries, demanding accountability. And here's where it gets interesting. Despite being encircled and humiliated, Cody did not obstruct them. His public statement was feeble, a whisper of a defense. "We're working through internal family matters with legal guidance." But the harm had already been done. Robyn ceased taking phone calls, and TLC filming was halted. Production insiders revealed Robyn even threatened to sue the network for broadcasting private conversations, but it was too late. The video had been broadcast, the harm could not be undone. Robyn sat by herself in her house, the once prized house she had persuaded Cody to purchase in her name, now a solitary prison. The accounts were put on hold and there was silence on the walls. For the first time, the quiet was exposure rather than tranquility. This moment speaks to the psychological trigger of consequences, the undeniable weight of reality crashing down when the illusion of control shatters. The last straw occurred at a family gathering to which Robyn was not invited. Meri, Janelle, Christine, and their children convened in Arizona for what they referred to as a realignment. "We need to take back our authority," Janelle declared. "We will no longer be controlled." Imagine the power in that statement, the collective reclaiming of identity. Meri glanced at the grown children in the room, Savannah, Hunter, Mikhail, Ty, Gabriel, and Gwendolyn. These were the children, once pushed aside by Robyn's authority, who now stood as soldiers and witnesses for their mothers. "She used our silence to build her empire," Christine continued. "But our silence is over." This was a powerful identity shift, a move from quiet compliance to vocal empowerment. When Robyn got home, she was met with a barrage of articles and headlines portraying her in an increasingly negative light. She attempted to call Cody, but only reached his voicemail. Her attempt to contact TLC's legal representative was blocked. No more cameras. Fan pages, once a source of validation, were no longer available. No more Cody supporting her while sitting next to her in family confessionals. Just her by herself, surrounded by the debris she had left behind. I was just trying to protect what was mine, she whispered to herself. But in her relentless quest to defend, accumulate, and safeguard, she had lost everything. This is the ultimate contrast, the pursuit of perceived security, leading to absolute isolation and loss. On a bleak Flagstaff morning, Robyn Brown emerged from a black SUV, her lawyer at her side, a desperate vibe hanging over her like stale perfume. There was a tight-lipped hush in place of her usual soft-spoken manner. The courthouse loomed like a death chamber in the distance. Inside, the gallery buzzed, the wooden benches crowded with reporters, bloggers, former Mormon campaigners, and curious locals. The woman who had once publicly sobbed on TLC about keeping the family together was now a defendant in a civil fraud and forgery lawsuit by Meri and Janelle Brown. The judge at the front leafed through a substantial pile of papers marked Community Property Fund Audit 2020 to 2024, Brown versus Brown. Behind her lawyer, Janelle sat composed, her clear-eyed confidence speaking for itself, donned in navy with no makeup. With a grim expression, Meri sat next to her, her intermittent glances at Robyn revealing years of grief now bubbling up as righteous fire. Then came the unexpected moment that shifted the entire dynamic. "Mr. Cody Brown, please take the stand." Silence descended, a palpable break in realization. Cody inhaled deeply before taking the stand, his hands resting restlessly in his lap. The gleam of theatrical assurance had vanished, and his hair was pulled back more tightly than normal. He took a while to respond when questioned if he had approved the transfer of more than $820,000 into accounts that were only in Robyn's name. "No, the forms were not read by me. I had faith in Robyn," he finally admitted. The judge's gaze narrowed. "And did you know that 3 different documents were digitally signed by you?" Cody paused, then gave a headshake. "No, I wasn't aware. I just trusted her when she told me that she was streamlining things." Whispers echoed through the gallery. Robyn sat rigidly and flushed, her attorney scrolling frantically. Janelle observed with icy precision. This was what she had been waiting for, not Cody's breakdown, but his admission. At last, he was dismantling the meticulously crafted delusion that she had long believed. And now, the entire world would follow suit. This moment speaks to the power of truth, even when delivered reluctantly, to dismantle long-held narratives and reveal hidden realities. Janelle then rose, carrying both history and evidence, and walked over to the witness chair. With composure, she described her years of overseeing family money, detailing how community property accounts were first handled jointly, how Robyn insisted on helping, and how she pushed for the transfer of all monies to centralized safety. Janelle stated unequivocally, "And when I asked questions, Robyn called me paranoid, said that I was fostering mistrust." But now, the truth was clear. We now know, however, that she wasn't assisting, she was in hiding. She gave Robyn her whole attention, her voice filled with a quiet power. "You didn't simply tell Cody a lie, you deceived us all. You took from our kids, from our futures." By the afternoon, Robyn's legal team was extremely anxious. The evidence was too damning: falsified e-signatures, bank transfers concealed from public view, and change notations on official community property ledger files. They tried to portray her as overwhelmed, claiming she had only taken on the responsibility because no one else would. But Christine Brown's sworn affidavit was even worse. Her written testimony described years of exclusion and conversations Robyn initiated about controlling the family wealth once the other wives left, despite the fact that she was there. According to Christine's affidavit, Robyn claimed we were unstable and didn't deserve equal shares. "I'll be the last wife standing when this all falls apart," she remarked with a laugh. In that instant, Robyn's face broke, not with tears, but with something more delicate: the growing fear that her kingdom was collapsing beyond saving. This is the profound psychological trigger of reality crashing down, the moment when the carefully constructed identity of control crumples under the weight of undeniable evidence. As the day's proceedings ended, the court mandated a change in authority, a forensic examination of all Brown family assets, and a freeze on Robyn's personal accounts pending additional investigation. The court would meet again in a week.
Outside, supporters cheered as Janelle walked down the courthouse steps, Meri trailing closely behind. They avoided talking to reporters. They were not obliged to. Their very presence made clear that this family no longer belonged to Cody and Robyn's fantasies. Inside, Robyn was slouched in a chilly corridor chair as her lawyer murmured the next course of action. But for the first time, Robyn didn't respond. Glazed, she gazed at the floor. She no longer had control over her image, Cody, or finances. Across the courtroom plaza, Cody was sitting by himself on a bench, his head in his hands and his elbows resting on his knees. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't the focus of anything. The audit, like the last drumbeat in a battle Robyn believed she had already won, had shattered her illusion. The morning of the audit report's release arrived. Every action she took, from speaking quietly to being pious to keeping her resentment wrapped in silk, had been well considered. But the truth, regardless of how tastefully the deception is told, always hits like thunder. The courtroom in Flagstaff was more crowded than ever. Attorneys, court clerks, and even a TLC production representative sat tensely as the 4-inch thick, red bound forensic accounting report was carried in. Judge Helms raised the first page. She spoke in a steady, crisp, almost clinical voice. 14 distinct financial transfers totaling $823,417.52 between 2020 and 2024 were discovered to have been made into 3 unidentified accounts under Robyn Sullivan Brown's name. Furthermore, 2 shell trusts with property titles not included in earlier reports were found. A gulp, then muttering filled the room. Meri's head tipped just a bit. Janelle crossed her arms over her chest fiercely. Stunned, Cody leaned back. It was alluded to in Christine's affidavit, but nobody had foreseen the magnitude. The report went on to say a Flagstaff property owned by the BRS Family Trust was paid $412,000 in cash, which was directly deducted from the community property account. Another asset was a Sedona vacation house without their title. TLC appearance fees were transferred from the family LLC into Robyn Brown's personal business account to finance Sullivan Holdings in an attempt to suppress evidence that was deemed inadmissible due to privacy concerns. Robyn's lawyer interjected, but it was too late. The data, IP logs, and transfers were all in the judge's possession. At last, the mask had broken. Behind Robyn's curtain, there were trusts, Sedona, and even the children's funds. This profound psychological trigger of reality crashing down is the moment when the carefully constructed identity of control crumbles under the weight of undeniable evidence. As the court went through the report line by line, one of the most heartbreaking facts it learned was that Robyn had diverted college savings funds that had been set aside for each of the 4 spouses' children. The Brown Futures Fund, an account that Janelle and Meri had once jointly established, had been lowered to $4,712. The others were transferred to a new account with the name only Dayton, Brianna, and Aurora from Sullivan Educational Holdings. Janelle did not cry when that was read aloud, but Savannah did. The betrayal hit like a slap as they were sitting at the museum with Gabe and Garrison's close friend. "She took everything meant for all of us and left us with nothing," Savannah muttered. This profound betrayal of the children's future is an emotional anchor in the story.
Following the disclosures in the report, Cody went into a downward spiral. Cameras saw him pacing the corridor with his fists clenched during a pause in proceedings, muttering, "How could she do this? How could I let her do this?" Later that day, Cody Brown sat alone on a seat outside the courtroom, watching the dust whirl. No longer the leader of a family, no longer the guardian of anything. When a reporter asked, "Do you think Robyn deceived you?" he didn't respond directly. Rather, he said, "I trusted all she told me. I opened our house to her and she set everything on fire." Meri wasted little time. Since the audit was now available to the public, her lawyers filed a formal motion for damages and restitution. They called for the return of community property monies that had been diverted, the liquidation of all assets that were concealed in trusts, and a criminal investigation into the falsified ownership and signatures. The motion was co-signed by Janelle. Christine made a video available to the public stating, "Even though I'm no longer with the family, I'm still witnessing justice be served. You don't get to keep what wasn't yours in the first place, Robyn." Robyn spent almost 2 days at home, locking herself in her bedroom.
Her phone was constantly buzzing with calls from lawyers, TLC representatives. They are unable to comprehend, I have to keep us safe, she thought. But even she felt that the words were meaningless. She gazed at fancy purses, property deeds tucked into shoe organizers, and boxes of unread Amazon packages in her walk-in closet. Everything secretly hoarded, silently bought. All of it was now evidence. Robyn's hand gripped the last court notice, Sullivan Trust Holdings, 30 days to comply with the motion to freeze. And for the first time in her meticulously planned existence, Robyn Brown had no one left to perform for. This is the ultimate contrast, the complete unraveling of a carefully constructed identity. The response on the internet was fast and harsh. Once supportive fans suddenly called Robyn the final wife who buried the family. Hundreds of thought pieces appeared on Reddit, YouTube, and TikTok. Robyn engineered the fall of the empire. She didn't just marry Cody. What happened to the money? And an analysis of Robyn's takeover of CP, Janelle, Meri, and the children, a sister wife's reckoning. The only statement issued by TLC was that the network is evaluating future filming in light of recent legal developments. Cody ceased to post on social media. Meri, Janelle, and Christine were apparently discussing a new production firm for a spin-off series tentatively dubbed Reclaimed Life After Polygamy. What about Robyn? She continued to hide behind the same barriers she had erected with the funds she referred to as protection. It was a tense, almost spiritually quiet courthouse on the day of judgment. For the final decision, just voices, paperwork, and the lingering shadow of unfulfilled promises were permitted inside. Cameras were not permitted. It was obvious to all that this was more than a simple legal conclusion. It was the funeral for what had once been a family. Wearing all black, Robyn sat at the defendant's table, her body shaking and her eyes rimmed with red. Her lawyer, drained and silent, sat to her right. The gallery was crowded behind them once more, but this time it was witnesses to justice rather than supporters. Janelle straightened up. She never took her eyes off the judge. She was there to complete the task Robyn had begun, not to rejoice. Beside her, Meri carried a single folder, which contained the original paperwork that Robyn had falsified. Ever since she learned the truth, she hadn't let them go. Judge Helms arrived, without fanfare. She sat, turned the page, and spoke in a voice honed by years of silently witnessing empires fall apart. This court finds Robyn Sullivan Brown liable for misappropriation of community property funds, fraud through concealment, and civil forgery of financial signatures. Robyn felt her shoulders tremble. She twitched her lips but made no sound. While the judge listed the terms of the ruling, the courtroom waited. Robyn was about to lose everything. First, complete BRS family trust liquidation, with all assets, including the residences in Sedona and Flagstaff, to be auctioned for market value. Second, the original community property account, now run by an impartial third-party trustee, appointed to Meri and Janelle, would receive $823,417.52 in damages. Third, all diverted college money was to be returned to all biological and adopted Brown children through the reallocation of the Brown Futures Fund. Fourth, financial power revocation. Robyn was no longer permitted to act on behalf of any LLC or Brown family business. And finally, for possible criminal charges pertaining to financial forgeries, the investigation was sent to the Arizona State Attorney's Office. Robyn fell into herself. A sob escaped. She shook her lawyer off as he put a steady touch on her shoulder. Meri did not feel sorry for her. Janelle just let out a breath. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, but Meri and Janelle remained silent. Walking hand in hand, they were a silent storm of agony and victory. The money wasn't the point. It had to do with what they had gone through. The years they were told to keep silent. The things they gave up for a man who wouldn't defend them. The deceit of a lady who built an empire behind their backs while crying behind masks of innocence. Christine was at the end of the sidewalk waiting. She gave them each a tearful embrace. "We succeeded," Meri muttered. "At last, we removed her authority." Suddenly, there was a permanent change in power. Robyn returned to a home she no longer owned. That evening, her legal team sent her a transition letter from the trustee stating that she had 45 days to leave the property unless she decided to buy it back, which she was no longer able to do. Dayton, Brianna, and Aurora sat quietly at the dining table. They had turned down the lights. The air was thick. Now what? Aurora inquired softly. Robyn opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The sun had risen after her empire had been a place of remorse and gloom. A few weeks later, the money from the liquidated trust was distributed. Meri and Janelle were standing together in a lawyer's office, discussing the new possessions: one Utah vacation house, one Arizona commercial property. Additionally, 40% of all TLC residuals were redirected to their names. They refrained from boasting. Champagne was not toasted. As women who had earned every inch of independence with the scars to show for it, they signed the papers and left in silence. Janelle had a small smile. We now have the authority to determine what constitutes legacy. Cody, meanwhile, was last seen renting a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Flagstaff. He is now separated from all four of his wives. His phone was silent, and his hair was turning gray. No crews from TLC, not more than one household, not an empire, just regret. He gazed at the barren wall of his living room, with a faded family photo still unpacked next to him. He took it up. Meri, Janelle, and Christine. Robyn, too. A younger, more confident, smug, and ambitious version of himself. What on earth did I do? He muttered and placed the frame on the counter face down. Robyn's enterprise did not end the Brown family's existence, it changed. Reclaimed, Life After Plural Marriage is a new documentary series that Christine, Meri, and Janelle are co-producing, focusing on financial freedom, healing, and reconstruction. Finally liberated from fear or duty, their children speak freely. Regarding Robyn, she vanished from the public eye. TLC quietly ended her contract. Her home in Flagstaff sold. The trending tabs faded her name. She became the outsider, something she never would have imagined. The others, though, they changed completely.